Good evening. Welcome to the 2026 election hustings for the St Brelade Connétable. I'm Kathy Keir and I'll be taking us through the proceedings this evening. We have until 9, so I hope you've all got lots of questions for the two candidates. Before we start, a bit of housekeeping. Please can you make sure your phones are on airplane mode so they don't interfere with the tech. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if you hear one, head quietly and gently towards the exits. This event's being live streamed on YouTube, so for those joining us online, welcome. If you scroll to the bottom of the screen and press the button, you'll get subtitles. You can also watch this tomorrow, so if you know anyone who couldn't make it tonight, they can watch the event on YouTube because it's being recorded as well. So we've got two candidates standing for election as Connétable of St Brelade. Alphabetically, we've got Mike Jackson, independent, and Steve Pallett, also independent. The candidates have decided that they'll each make a speech for 5 minutes, and they'll speak first will be Mike Jackson, is what they've decided. And they've allocated 3 minutes to answer each of your questions, up to 3 minutes. And they'll take it in turns to be the first to answer each question. So let's kick off with the speeches. Mike.
I'm never sure whether these things work or not anyway, but here's to work. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I really appreciate you coming out tonight on this lovely sunny evening. My name is Mike Jackson. I'm the present Connétable of St Brelade, having been first elected in 2005 and then again in 2018. Prior to that, I served as a roads inspector for the parish and during the years in between as a constable's officer and then a centenier. I've been supported in my role as Connétable here by an exemplary staff who continue to fulfil their roles with professionalism to serve you, the parishioners, and I'm grateful for what they do. I served between 2008 and 2011 as a Transport and Technical Services Minister and have latterly served as the Chair and Vice Chair of the Environment Scrutiny Panel and in this last term as Assistant Environment Minister. I was in addition elected as chair of the Comité de Connétable, probably in the light of my extensive parish experience and trust in my leadership. I was born and raised in St Brelade, and my background is in the marine leisure industry, having qualified in yacht and boatyard management in Southampton, where I went after leaving Victoria College here. I'm the proprietor of a boatyard and marine shop in St Albans, and this has also incorporated a community post office for some 10 years. The business has traded for 50 years and employs a valued team across various roles. This experience has given me a clear understanding of the challenges faced by small business here in Jersey and the vital contribution they make to the economy and local community life. Family is very important to me. My son Will is a master mariner with Jersey Coast Guard and has a young son, Aidan. My daughter Laura lives in the United States working as a flight attendant and has a daughter, Tilly, and I'm immensely proud of them all. I believe that stability in government is what most people value, particularly in uncertain times. With ongoing global economic challenges, it's essential that we maintain a steady and measured approach in parish leadership. I'm committed to provide that stability, avoiding unrealistic promises and focusing instead on preserving and strengthening the parish in a way that reflects the wishes of its residents. Investment in infrastructure remains a key priority. Much of the work is unseen but essential, particularly as climate change is expected to bring periods of increased rainfall. We must ensure that our systems are resilient to prevent future risks. The reinforcement of our electricity cabling is crucial to provide for increased future demand. The parish continues to invest prudently in our road infrastructure, and the Roads Committee volunteers, whom I'm extremely grateful to, are in the process of compiling an asset register to enable planning future maintenance. Our education system in the island continues to evolve, and it's vital that we invest in the right teaching staff to educate our children to meet the needs of modern society. Adequate nursery provision at reasonable cost is crucial for parents struggling to pay mortgages, as well as cope with an ever-increasing cost of living. Students must be given support in finding jobs on leaving school, or directed to a further education path which can enable them to qualify in their chosen field and have the option of returning to Jersey should they so wish. We have a good sports offering in St Brelade, and it needs continual support, staffing and maintenance so that Jersey can show itself off to a high standard in national and international competition. The long-awaited construction of a new hospital must progress without delay for the benefit of patients and the dedicated healthcare professionals who serve them. Providing housing and accommodation at an affordable cost is a challenge we face on an island of a finite size. So we need to be imaginative and innovative in the way we do this without losing green fields. Downsizing provision needs to be a priority in the light of our ageing population. A close look at our agricultural industry and support in enabling a viable growing industry to support a population of our size is becoming more crucial as food supply lines become more challenged and expensive. Our fishing industry mustn't be overlooked, small as it is. The construction industry is a key element of our economy and mustn't be stifled by an over-complex planning regime. There are brownfield sites appropriate for redevelopment, and these should be exploited. I'm dedicated to the Parish of St Brelade, and I believe my track record demonstrates that, and I would be greatly honoured to continue serving as your Constable for a further 4 years and representing you in the States Assembly. Please consider voting for me on the 7th of June. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Now, Steve, if anybody wants to take some seats before Steve starts, there's a couple of seats down here. Do you two people at the back want to sit down? No, you're all right. Okay. Steve Pallett.
Thank you, and thanks for coming out on such a beautiful evening. Hello, I'm Steve Pallett, and I very much want to be your new Connétable. Oh, sorry. Shall I start again?
It's on.
I'll start again. Hello, I'm Steve Pallett, and I very much want to be your new Connétable. Preparing for this evening, I thought carefully about what you might want from your father of the parish, and why I believe my experience and values match those expectations. I am no stranger to the role of Constable in St Brelade, or to the States Assembly, serving 3 terms, 2 as your Connétable and 1 as a senator. I have the experience needed to represent the parish effectively from day one. Through my work in scrutiny and assistant minister roles, I've developed the leadership, determination and understanding needed to ensure St Brelade's interests are properly represented. As a senator, I was proud to bring forward my proposition to protect Samurai Ward at Overdale from cuts that would have placed stroke and cancer victims' recovery at risk. And as sports minister, I fought hard to secure the skateboard facility at Llanelli, despite attempts to stall the project. I continued pushing until government delivered it. Today, it is a successful and valued facility for our young people. Determination alone, though, is not enough. You rightly expect strong leadership and sound decision-making from your Connétable. During my previous terms, I introduced a fully designed and consulted recycling scheme and a refuse contract that continues to provide excellent value for money. I also introduced the first affordable home scheme at Lamoy, which has already generated significant funds for future affordable housing initiatives. I secured the transfer of valuable land at Clos de Sable and Kennervay Park to prevent further development, implemented road safety improvements and oversaw improvements to St Brelade, Mesa St Brelade, to provide modern hors-suite facilities. If elected, I will leave improvements in how the parish operates to ensure services remain effective, efficient and affordable. I will ensure decisions are made promptly, transparently and always in the best interests of you, my fellow parishioners. Good decision making is essential. Recently, parish assemblies have been asked to support propositions that lacked proper consultation and sufficient financial detail. Future projects, including the Elephant Park, must involve proper consultation with all user groups, particularly young people. Important decisions should be made collaboratively, not imposed by a small majority. The parish also has a responsibility to protect and manage its property assets. Alongside the parish hall, we own many other valuable properties, and these assets must be properly maintained and professionally managed. That is why I intend to establish a property management committee. This committee would oversee long-term maintenance planning, property assessments and valuations through a parish property plan, thus providing a more professional and accountable approach to managing parish assets. Whilst door knocking, it's become clear to me that many parishioners are struggling with rising living costs. Older residents living solely on a state pension are especially vulnerable. I want to see a review of whether the state pension is really a living pension and whether tax thresholds should be adjusted to better support those at risk. I also want to focus on children and young people, as they are our future. They deserve to play an active role in shaping both parish and island life. I was heartened by the contribution that young people made at the Parish Assembly on the Elephant Park toilets. Their input demonstrated that we should be doing far more to involve them in local decision making. If elected, I will bring forward proposals for a St Brelade Youth Forum and work with parents, schools, youth project and the Children's Commissioner to make it a reality. Within previous roles, I've supported our youth project, sports clubs and associations, as well as initiatives such as Call and Check and the St Brelades Community Group, which I established. I will continue to support all organisations and volunteers that strengthen our community. Sport and physical well-being has been central to my life since I was very young, and I believe we urgently need to shift our focus from simply treating illness to preventing it. By encouraging healthier lifestyles through a properly funded health prevention plan, we can tackle obesity, diabetes and heart disease whilst reducing long-term pressures on taxpayers' ill health. There are challenges ahead, but let's be honest, we live in the most beautiful parish. I respectfully ask you for your vote on June the 7th. Thank you.
Thank you to both candidates, and thank you to Jenny on the bell. Now it's time for your questions. Glenda will be bringing the microphone round to you, so wait till she gets to you. If you do put your hand up to ask a question, please tell us your name and confirm that you are a parishioner. Ask one question and then hand the mic back to the helper, to Glenda. And when phrasing your question, please bear in mind that both candidates need to be able to answer it, so no questions directed at just one candidate. If we have time, I'll come back to people who want to ask a second question, but I will prioritise people who haven't yet asked one to begin with. We won't be taking questions from other candidates or from current States members. And please keep your questions succinct and leave the speeches to the candidates. Okay, let's get started. Who wants to ask a question? A lady at the back there, Glenda.
Steve, you mentioned parish properties. Yeah. Could you just give us a quick run through of the main ones and what they are? Thank you.
Can you make that into a question for both candidates?
Sorry, both candidates. Which are they? What parish properties do they feel are the priorities? It was just that Steve had specifically mentioned them, and I'm not aware of what these properties are.
Okay, Steve,
thank you.
First.
Well, can you hear me? There's a number, and if I miss one or two, I'm sure Mike will be able to fill in the gaps. We own this building. We own the parish depot. Up at the Zorm, we own Clarendon House, Le Gervais de Gros Centre, which are just on the high street, Le Pavé on the high street. There's a refuse depot just around the corner that we've been trying to sell. There are other properties as well, such as the church hall. I'll leave Mike one or two to fill in. But clearly, over a period of time, I don't believe we've really kept up with the property maintenance on all of those properties. I've become aware, certainly more recently, of one or two not too far from here that are really falling into severe disrepair. And for me, people waiting maybe 18 months, 2 years to have their properties repaired is just not acceptable. What I do think the parish needs is a parish property plan that's clearly set out. It's presented to a parish assembly each year and sets out how we're going to maintain our properties. We also need to clearly have an understanding of what those properties are worth. And at some point, we may have to dispose of a property to maybe make sure that the others are kept in a good condition. But there's clearly a need for it. I'm convinced by speaking to the people that have been affected that if we don't have a clear property plan, a clear, understandable feel for how we're going to deal with our property, it's just going to carry on decaying, or some of them are. We've done some good work. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, the parish hall roof's just been done, and fair play to the Constable for doing that. But there are other properties, I think, especially when you've got tenants involved, that need to be dealt with expeditiously, and I don't feel at the moment that's being done.
Mike Jackson.
Well, yes, I think to add to the ones that Steve mentioned, the rectory, which you'll know about, Judy, and the church adjacent church hall, the parish has an interest in. I'm going to describe it as that because it's a bit complicated. There's also a field down in St Brilard's Bay, the water meadow. There's a field. There are two fields at the top of Mont de Longchamp, the Clos des Pauvres, and also a field at the top of Montequoit. So bits and pieces, but Steve rightly pointed out the properties all need maintenance. Old property is expensive to maintain, and we have to plan it so that we have the budget to do it. It's expensive. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Over here. Could you keep your hand up for a sec so that Glenda can see you? Thank you.
Okay, so I've got some notes here. So parishes are increasingly expected to deliver more services while residents are already struggling with cost of living pressures. What specific financial strategy would you implement to ensure St Brelade remains financially sustainable over the next 10 years, considering that parish rates have increased at an average of 44% against a Jersey RPI index of 40%?
So how are you going to be financially sustainable? Mike will answer first this time.
I think having got properties to a reasonable standard on the whole, we should be more stable. The roof cost on this property was significant in itself, as has other work been on properties, and the ones alluded to really by Steve, we're looking at another 50, 100,000 for work to be done then on those, and we're trying to do within the budgets we have without having to increase the rent to suit. We also have to contend with road repairs. Roads wear out, and ours are in pretty good order, and the Roads Committee managed that pretty well, and so we're not in a position whereby we have to do major repairs. But if you look at Clos des Sables, if you like, and Kenway Park, where there's a lot of road work going on, we're looking in the longer term that will be a resurfacing project, so we have to plan that in. But I'm very conscious of the cost of living increases and the difficult situations a lot of families find themselves in.
Steve.
Well, I'm sorry you're having the problems that you're having. Clearly, even from the people I've spoken to, door knocking, there are a large number of people now that I think are beginning to really feel it. I feel those I feel for the most are those most vulnerable people. I think we've got a lot of elderly people in the parish that I think are beginning to seriously struggle now. We do need to provide them with more support, particularly on the rates. I've been disappointed at the level that the rate's been set out for some years now, and we clearly need to ensure that the parish is as efficient as possible. Now, there's going to have to be some difficult decisions made. It isn't just about purely around looking at parish assets. I had a look at today around where we are in terms of something like staff costs, for example. Now, staff costs over the last 6 years have increased. If you look at how much they were to where they are now, they've increased, if over 6 years, average 11% a year. That's clearly not sustainable in a parish, and that's including another 160,000 quarters that have been added to allow to raise extra money. So we've got to make sure that we make the most of the money that we've got. We need to make sure we're getting value for money when we're carrying out parish projects. I think a lot of people were utterly dumbfounded by the cost of the Elephant Park toilets. And I think a lot of people came here to stop that. But as I've already said, once you hear from children that have had to suffer that for year upon year upon year, you understand why you have to make that decision. But cost of living is not going to be an easy one to solve. I think there are things government can do. I think in terms of fuel costs, I think we can maybe look at whether we can take some of the tax off of fuel at the current time and put that somewhere else to supporting people like yourselves. But yeah, I think from a parish point of view, Mike's quite right. We've got some fantastic hard-working staff. I think we need to maybe focus a little bit better so that parishioners don't bear the cost of that.
Thank you to both of you. Anybody else with a question? Down in the front here, Glenda.
Yes, I'm Marilyn Carey, and I live in the parish. My question would be concerning parking, mostly in St Auban, but throughout St Brelade, parking is such a big issue. And so I would like to put that to both candidates, please.
So is your question, how would they increase parking? What would be the question?
What they could do about the parking
Okay, Steve
situation.
first.
Mike was a centenier, I've been a centenier, I've been a constable's officer, and parking could be the bane of honorary police's life. It's difficult. St Albans is a very restricted area in terms of the number of car parking spaces, and it's extremely popular. The nightlife down here at the weekend, as everybody can see, it's an extremely popular place to come. In terms of improving it, I went through a very challenging parish assembly back in, I think it was 2017, around trying to look at how we could rationalise parking down here to try to improve it and try to make it cheaper for everyone. And that didn't go through. In fact, I got a right pasting over it at the time. I think we need to look at it again. I think there are opportunities, I think, on the harbour arm, which we could make more of. But in terms of producing extra parking down here, I don't think anybody wants to go back to thinking about having reclamation schemes and stuff like that, because it will just destroy the feel of St Albans. So it's not it's not an easy one to answer. But I think, like, I've always been disappointed when parking down here isn't a light touch for traffic wardens. People don't, parking tickets are expensive these days, and sometimes I see tickets given out unnecessarily. Not an easy one to deal with, but you can't create something that's not there. But I think the only place you could do something is the harbour arm. I know Mike may have a different view of that because obviously he's got a boatyard to run, but I think there is an opportunity there to maybe have year-round parking on there and do something else with the boats maybe. Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you. It's an eternal challenge, and having lived through the reclamation proposals some years ago, that conversation resulted in, there were some 80 people we had in this hall discussing that, and the end result was that we should do nothing for the time being. It wasn't nothing forever, nothing for the time being. It's not something I supported, quite frankly, because it was going to cost, well, then it was going to be 25 million, be 5 times that, if not more now. And realistically, nobody wanted to pay for it. Everybody wants free parking. Well, you can't have it all ways. We do live on the best bus route in the island here, and I know government tries to encourage people to get out of their cars. Not always practical, depending on where you live. And there are a lot of people that come down to the cafes and restaurants down here on the bus if they can. But realistically, timing is of the essence. And I think we discovered some time ago that Sunday morning is the worst time of the week when, with a high tide, churches full, restaurants full, and people on their boats. That's the time not to come. Usually you can find somewhere, and it's a question of knowing where to look. Sorry, I can't offer any more than that.
Thank you. Anybody? Next question? Gentleman down here. Where's Glenda? Oh, there.
Hello. Yeah, my name's Chris Tompkins. I've lived in the parish for 37 years, and parking has always been a problem. But in all that time, in all honesty, I think I've only thought 4 or 5 times that I've not been able to find anywhere to park. I think the parking at the moment, we should keep as it is, as a status quo, because as Mike has already mentioned, I mean, when the village is full, the restaurants are full, and so there's nowhere to park. And people understand this now, and they are beginning to use the buses more.
And do you have a question about it?
Yeah, what I would like to ask is, are there any changes going to be made to the parking within the St Albans area?
Okay. Mike?
I think the change that I would like to make, and I have made attempts to do this, is to amalgamate the three authorities that manage the parking down here. It's a nonsense, truthfully. You've got the infrastructure department managing most of that bit. You've got ports managing the harbours. We manage other bits. And none of the States departments want to give up their little fiefs, if you like. And with some banging of heads together, we could easily do it. For instance, the bit at the back that's managed by car park under the infrastructure department also has gardens managed by the infrastructure department. We suggested at one point that we could take over the parking and get the income from it to be able to pay for managing the gardens. But there are two different sections within that department, so there was no movement on that. So maybe a new minister in the infrastructure department might look on it more favourably. Ports tend to be a little bit defensive of their realm and don't want to let anything go. They're a little bit more relaxed in their approach, but I think we have a parking control officer who could easily manage it all without much difficulty. So I think that's the direction I'd like to go in. Thank you.
Steve?
I'll be short. I think you were at that meeting, and I think the answer to that question has got to be no. I think the people that came down at the consultation and also at the parish assembly were quite clear that they didn't want changes. I wouldn't be bringing that back. It's not in my manifesto, and it's not something that would be a high priority for me. I think people have already said quite clearly that that we are in a really good bus route. People do make the most of that. And they'll come and they'll go home on the bus as well. So there's nothing that I really want to change in terms of the parking at the current time. The only opportunity may be the harbour arm, but that's a discussion with Ports of Jersey. And Mike's got right. They're not the easiest people to do business with and get any change out of. So I can't imagine too much change.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Gentleman over there with the baseball hat.
Hello, Glyn Mitchell from the parish. My interest is in the pinch point at La Hole on cycling areas. That is, we're going to share it with public, bicycles and even a train, and it gets very tight there. I'd be really interested to understand what you think about that and what could be done about it.
What was your name again?
Glyn Mitchell.
The question is...
Okay, it's the pinch point at La Hole for the cyclists, the walkers and the train. It gets very tight there and very
dangerous. The shared space that he's concerned about. So you want to know what their view of that is? Okay, Steve.
Now, for somebody that walks along there regularly, I totally agree. It is a problem. What I would like to see is take the cyclists off that area to some degree and maybe do what we've got further down here, which is have them back on the road but on a specific area where they cycle along. But clearly at the junction, that's going to be a major problem. You can ask cyclists all day long to dismount at something like that and they're not going to take any notice. But I think you're right, there is going to be an accident there, and I'm not somebody that says things like that, but I've seen close calls there time and time again. So we do need to look at something there, but it's either going to be you take cyclists out at the bus stop or somewhere around there, you put them back on the road and then you bring them back in further along. That's the only way you can go through a pinch point like that. You could probably do something with, well, again, I don't think you can do anything with a central reservation because you've got to get number 15 buses through it. So I think you're very limited. So I think it is difficult. You can't really put a cycle lane there. You picked a question that's not particularly easy to answer, but I'd have a look at it. You need to take infrastructure, you need to take experts that know things about roads and cyclists and see if you can talk to them about what is a good solution to that. At the current time, I haven't got a good solution for it. It's not really something I've thought about. So yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll look at basically talk to infrastructure about it.
Mike.
Thank you, and I'm well aware of the issue down there. I have seen draft plans from the infrastructure department, and it's on their to-do list. It's not an easy junction to do, but it did involve reducing the down traffic at coming down the hill to one lane. I think we'll have to wait till it comes out. Basically, I think the delay was from a funding point of view, but there are draft ideas out there, so I look forward to seeing them. But it certainly needs doing, because there have been several accidents at that particular point. Thank you for the question.
Okay, we've got another question down here, and then we'll go to the gentleman at the back with the glasses.
Hi, Rosie Hubie. I live in the parish. On the same sort of lines, the whole hill is a bit of a rat run. So you get a lot of people who work at the old people's home trying to walk up and down the hill if they haven't got their bus. And it's really dangerous with the traffic. Is there any way that maybe some land can be put to one side? When you go up the hill on the left, there's sort of seems to be wasteland. There could be some way of doing a safer walkway for people.
Okay, so Mike first, La Whole Hill.
Yes, once again, I'm keen on the creation of not only pedestrian paths, but also cycle paths where necessary. And it's a question of the infrastructure department negotiating with the landowner for some land. We've seen that take place in St. Peter's Valley. We've seen a track coming down there, and I think there are several areas where that's needed, and I would be very supportive of that. Thank you.
Steve.
Again, I've witnessed people coming up that hill at horrendous speeds, up and down, to be honest with you. And they don't just stop there, because I think they get to the junction to go up towards Rue de Bocage, and again, they go through that, and they go through where you've got the empty house, and that little cut through there. I'm amazed people haven't been killed in there with collisions. So the road speed was lowered back in 2015, but does it stop people speeding? No, it doesn't. I think the only way you're going to stop people speeding up there is to physically try to stop them. Now, I'm not saying a 20 is suitable, but you could certainly find ways of doing things with roads where there is I forget what it's called, I was talking about the other day, like we've got in Petit Route de Miao, where you've got a pathway to the side that cars need to slow and go in and slow the cars that way. But that certainly needs to be followed at least up all the way through. The section up towards the house that's empty is a little bit more difficult. It's a difficult, you have to go at a slower speed there, but I certainly would be in favour of doing something in terms of reducing the speed of traffic by physically trying to do something on the road from the bottom of the whole hill to that junction. And also, I think people speed up through that as you go further up as well. So you could have it's like a ghost walkway with things to slow people down. Sorry, a virtual pavement. I knew it was there somewhere. And for me, that would be. And there are other places in the parish where I think that would work as well. But that's one solution, I think, for that particular area.
Thank you. Gentleman at the back with the kind of turquoise shirt.
My name is Paul Michel. I live in the parish. A question about the youth of the parish, which you sort of both mentioned. I was at the assembly and sat next to the young girl who's a friend of my daughter's, and sort of swayed, I think, a lot of people on that day. How would you practically engage that age group, sort of 8 above? Because you've got 3 schools, you've got 2 primary schools, a secondary. How would you practically engage them rather than just saying you would? How would you actually do it?
Steve.
Well, it's very much for me about communication. That's something that I hope I'm pretty good at. Yes, you've got to go and talk to the schools first. I go and talk to both the primary schools, head teachers, and see first whether they want to get involved, and I hope that they would. I haven't spoken to the Kennebec school head, but I've met him on several occasions, and again, I think he's always open to new ideas. I think in terms of engaging with young people, if we don't engage with young people and we don't understand their thoughts and views on things, then we're going to do things that they don't necessarily like or want. So they have to have a voice somewhere. And I think by doing that, by joining, by having an opportunity to go into schools, talk to them, and maybe they elect somebody from each of the year groups to go to a youth forum. and the same at Connétable. I see no reason why young people of 5, 6, 7 years of age can't be on a youth forum with children of 13, 14, 15, 16. For me, it's about how you communicate with them and how they communicate between each other. If you've got facilities that have got multi-age, are used by multi-ages, you need to have views of all sorts of ages. Elephant Park is that to a large degree. It caters for 2 or 3-year-olds all the way up to 11, 12, 13-year-olds. So I think you do need to speak to them. You do need to understand what they want in a park. I don't want to put something in a park that children don't want. I want to put something in that's going to be useful. But if you don't talk to them, don't engage with them. And the thing that really worries me is, and I know we've got one of the candidates here, is youth engagement in politics. If we don't get to grips with that, and we don't really engage with young people around how our political system works, how the parish hall works, what happens in here, what we do. I'd have somebody ghosting me. I'd love that 2 or 3 times a year, or even more often, to understand, and they can take back to their friends about what they saw there. And it's just, the school thing's great, taking, I think it's year 7 into the States Assembly, but there's got to be a lot more of that. So when you do approach the age of the candidate, is you have a full understanding of what the States is about, and I'm not saying he doesn't, because he clearly does, but has a full understanding, and then I think you're in a much better position to vote, to understand what people are talking about, and to engage. But we've got to make sure we get young people's views, especially on things that affect them very closely. Elephant Park's going to be one of them when we do the play area.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you. And focusing back on the Elephant Park, I think the approval of the funding to develop the toilet block was really a key to the rest of the park. And we have a proposal waiting as that development goes to have several consultation meetings, probably morning, afternoon and evening, because the difficulty with parents who've got children is they can't come out in the evenings, just doesn't work, and I'm sure those of you with younger children would agree with that. And that's the way to do it. I think we would consult on site as to what comes next, which bits of play equipment perhaps to replace, which bits of play equipment to introduce into the mix, and there are lots of options. I think the funding necessary for different items of play equipment will be forthcoming. The big spend on the toilet block was challenging, there's no question about it. So I look forward to developing the conversation with our young people on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one person over there wanting to ask a question at the back, and then after that, the lady in the black top.
Right, I have a bugbear. And
what's your name first, please?
Sorry, Denise Waller, and I live in St Oban.
Okay, lovely.
It's the area from the bottom of Railway Walk, across Market Hill, past the curry place, over the bulwarks, and into this area. You get bicycles coming down very fast occasionally, straight across the end of both those roads without any form of stoppage. Having spoken to them, they say that it's perfectly suitable for them because there's no anything saying that you can't go straight across. Oh yes, there's a yellow line, but that's somewhere up there. I didn't really see it. They reckon that that is a freeway for them. Then further along, where the bicycle, there is no rail bicycle track, along the pavement there, is where Debbie Davey was hit in the back by a bicycle and broke her shoulder. Because the bicycles go along there, and there were 2 chaps going along, and one of them hit her, and he stayed with her until the ambulance came and she was whisked off to hospital. But there's nothing saying...
Do you have a question that you'd like to ask?
What are we going to do with all this? Can we have signage saying bicycles give way to pedestrians. Bicycles give way to cars, perhaps. That's
Okay.
the question.
Mike.
Well, signage is quite easy to achieve. I'm not sure what else we could do. You can start putting physical elements in place to slow bicycles down. We end up throwing people off their bicycles if you're not careful. But I think signage could be achieved. And once again, we need to speak to the infrastructure department to achieve that. And they're quite keen on making it easier for cycles. So I think maybe it's an area we should push on, and we can meet and identify the pinch spots that you identify. Certainly keen on doing that.
Steve.
Thanks for the question. It's again, it's another pinch point. Cycling safety is important. It is a major cycling route from the Connétable down into town. So I think we should be thankful we've got it, because the east of Ireland would tear our arm off for a cycle route that into town as good as the one that we've got. But in terms of safety, you're absolutely right. Absolutely, cyclists should give way to pedestrians, and cars should give way to cyclists. Do they? No. Some of it's around education with young people and ensuring that actually they know the right things to do. Some of it is around signage, absolutely, to make sure that it's safe. Some of it's around monitoring. Sometimes it is good to have somebody there, and I'm not going to put any pressure on the honorary police to do that, because they're on pressure enough. But it does need to maybe occasionally have people there saying you're cycling too fast. I think there are bigger issues on other areas of the railway walk where people clearly cycle, where there's straight sections at speeds on, and I'm not going to, this is not anti-electric bikes, but cycle at speeds on electric bikes far in excess of what they should do, putting young and old and dogs and all sorts of other things at risk, and that's clearly not acceptable. That's something that I think we do need to talk to about infrastructure, how we slow electric bikes down. I've got nothing against them. I think they give people a lot of opportunity to get on bikes that they wouldn't normally have. But some of them now I think are deregulated. I think they go far too fast for the roads. And it's the same with electric scooters. All this stuff we need to have a clear lead from infrastructure about how we're going to deal with e-bikes and e-cycles and e-scooters moving forward. There needs to be legislation around, certainly around e-scooters, because they will become more of an issue. Again, I haven't got issue about them being on the road, but they need to be insured. There needs to be legislation to cover them if they have an accident, and it's clearly not there at the moment. But you're right. I think some of it's education, but you're right. Signage, monitoring, and try to avoid an accident that none of us want.
Thank you. Lady just there with the glasses, and after that we'll go, who had their hand up there? To the lady over there with the denim jacket.
Hi. Sorry. Hi, I'm Rio Latimer. I live up at the Connétable. I've got a question about the use of parish facilities. So the parish hall is made available for lots of different types of event, like we have the baby steps was hosted down here. I found that very good as a parent. But we've got one group that's been using the parish hall or allowed use of a parish hall in recent years that promote really harmful things about trans people. They put up banners advertising their events, saying that gender ideology is a danger to women and children. As a parent, when I'm out with my child, I have to worry that people are going to see me and my child and worry I'm a danger to them. I was wondering if either of you might consider limiting the use of this space for groups like that, or at a minimum maybe putting conditions on its use so we don't see these banners that are saying that my existence might be a danger to people.
So that's a question about the use of the parish hall by groups that might be putting up posters that are offensive or offensive to other people. Steve?
We shouldn't be. The parish hall needs to be available to as many people as possible, because it is a public facility. I've been going on for a long time about use of schools and other facilities so that the public get the best use out of them. But you're quite right. If people are putting offensive posters up that are clearly not in the spirit of the community, something that I'm keen to support, then clearly that needs to be considered. But to stop people being able to do that, I'm not aware of that. I don't know what specific groups you're talking about. But I would, if Constable, definitely want to, if you came to me and said, is that a problem, I'd have a discussion with you about how that could be rectified, and maybe a discussion with the group that are displaying such signs to say that's not appropriate. So I think a lot of it's around communication and making what is acceptable clear. Banning groups sometimes causes more problems than it solves. So it might be better to actually have that chat, have that communication and say, look, there's another way to do this. You are offending people. Please don't do that again.
Mike.
Thank you. I think the parish hall is available to all parishioners, and clearly any offensive signage is unacceptable. But we have a very diverse parish. There will be different groups wanting to use the parish hall for their different meetings, and I think we just have to accommodate it. I wouldn't wish to be the judge of whether their particular diverse direction is right or wrong. It's a free island, free world, so let them get on with it. But I think it has to be moderated to the extent that they can't be offending anybody, and that's the wrong route. And what you're proposing, or what you've seen, I don't think is acceptable. I don't believe I've seen it myself, but those sort of signage or indicating that sort of behaviour is unacceptable, and I think that would be the same to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question over here now.
Sue Noble, I am a parishioner. I think it was probably 5 years ago, it might have been a bit more. We were walking home one night at 11:15. The tide was nearly up. It was very quiet. In fact, Mike Jackson will know about this because I did write to him. And a gentleman passed us. He was a little bit worse for wear, and we carried on walking and heard a bit of a thud. He had fallen over that part of the walkway, the esplanade, where there are no barriers, no little wall, no railings, nothing. Now, by the time we had called, he was unconscious. By the time we'd called the paramedics, they put him on one of these stretchers and they were wading through the water. Had we not been there, that man would have drowned. And I have spoken to a number of people over these years, and nothing, it keeps getting shelved, nothing is getting done. I understand that some parishioners don't want railings because they think they look unsightly. I personally think, and I want to know what you think, that what is more important is that we keep people safe. Our own granddaughter, when she was 9 some years ago, lost control of her bike and actually cycled off there. I mean, thankfully she was fine. But I don't think it's safe there, and I would like to know what you think.
Okay, Mike.
That matter has been discussed ad infinitum, I think it's fair to say, by the infrastructure department under whose umbrella it comes. The latest result, which I encourage, because as you say, nothing was happening, to put at least a line down there, a bit like you see if you go on a train station, a bright line on the edge, at least so that people can realise that there is an edge there. Personally, I would have thought a stone capping, for want of a better word, much as you've got further down at the gun site, would have worked, because there is a degree of overtopping on a big tide there, and that would serve to protect the bank. But when I suggested that, the indication was it would be far too expensive, and they bounce back to planning. So anything that goes there has to go to planning. But I think it's one of those we have to keep nudging at, because I think it does need something physical. You're dead right. Thank you.
Steve.
I've seen your accidents there with children that have almost fallen off. Sometimes the sand's there to stop the fall to some degree. Other times it's rocks and stones. Personally, I'll be honest, I'm not against putting railings up there. What I don't want to see is us spend £500,000 doing it. If it's something that is simple to do and doesn't cost too much, a simple railing, then I haven't got an issue. It's the only section of seawall that hasn't got some protection. It's lower along this section, but nevertheless, it stops you walking over the wall. So I wouldn't be against that. And if infrastructure came to me as Constable and said, is that something that you would support? I would talk to residents because I think it's the right thing to do. But I think you've also got to look at the safety aspect. And sometimes you've just got to take the bull between the horns. Not every decision's popular. I'm sure half the people in here want railings and others don't. But I've seen near accidents there, and I think something does need to be done.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I'll come back to you when other people have asked, because you've already asked one, haven't you? But I'll see if any people who want to ask their first question. Gentleman there in the blue shirt. Anybody else to come after that? And then down here. Okay.
Alistair Lazar, Vantage and Ramal. Some of the candidates in the general election have suggested that the Bridging Island Plan is not fit for purpose. One of you will be in the Assembly which considers the new Island Plan. I wondered whether you were given an assurance that far from weakening the Island Plan, you would maintain its strong policies and that you would especially protect and defend the green zone, because in my view the green zone is vital to the look and feel of St Brelade.
Steve.
Alistair, good to see you again. The answer to that is yes. We've had some pretty contentious planning applications over the years in St Brelades, some around the Coastal National Park and other around green zone areas. And I've been clear all along that for me, I think any large development in St Brelades is long gone in terms of housing estates, for example. But I've got something in my manifesto about protection around greenfield sites around the airport, because I don't trust ports to keep their word about not putting more sheds and coming around even further. Am I a die-in-the-hard environmentalist? I think you probably know I'm not a die-hard, but I am pretty clear around I don't want to see the coast of St Brelades damaged any further than it has been. I think we've made mistakes over the last 15, 20 years. The Bridging Island Plan needs to be reviewed. That doesn't mean we need to take away the protections in it. There are elements of it I think need to be simpler to deal with and easier to understand. This was a hot topic at the Construction Council the other day. So there needs to be a balance, and it's not always about compromise. It's about sticking up for what you think is right and making sure that you're protecting things that are important. So no new large development in St Brelades. I think there's opportunities to do some infill sites around, to provide maybe some over 70s homes. But for me, the days of large development in St Brelades is over. And I think we need to be conscious about what sites we do build on around the island and make the most of those that are currently in the island plan. And potentially try to build those out. I mean, again, Construction Council were particularly damning around political interference because it risks. I think developers need certainty. The building industry needs certainty around housing developments and providing homes for young people. But I think if you're asking me specifically about St Brelades, I think I will stand up and protect what I believe is right, and I think we've gone as far as we can with large developments, and green zone is very important. I'll pick up on one point, because I know you might pick up on me with it, is around Strive. I know that was a very difficult application, but it was one that I thought just tipped the balance for me, because I think there are elements of that from an economic point of view that make that worthwhile, but it's on the edge of the green zone. And I'm conscious that we can't eat any further into that. So I wouldn't support any further development there, but I think it was necessary.
Mike.
I'm, I think, paranoid about protecting our green fields and the green zone. It's too easy to nibble at it. Likewise, infill is always the start at the beginning of the end, in my view, and needs to be kept a close eye on. We also need to keep a good eye on the edges of the green zone, and we've seen at Melrose or end of Kenvane to Lamoy a massive development right on the edge of the green zone, which almost makes a nonsense of it. And despite much objection earlier on, that went through, and we've seen an adjacent property the other side of the road. At one point there were 80 or 90 objections, and that still went through. So I think our green zones need to be very well protected, and any legislation adhered to. With regard to the island plan, I think I've sat through certainly 2 island plans, if not 3. It's quite heavy going, and the last one, I think, deceived States members to a large extent, because there was no mention of drainage at the time, and the fact that fields up in St Peter's, you'll see, have been rezoned, and there's a lot of work going on there. Perfectly adequate agricultural green fields are being turned into housing, and whilst I empathise with those who want a house, those fields have gone forever. And when they were approved by the Assembly, there was no indication of the need for drainage. It wasn't even mentioned. So now that we've got a mitigation tank going in place, and the same probably in the east of the island at Moform, they're still waiting for that, you will see applications to develop green fields. So we need to keep a close eye on that and make our views clear. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question down here. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Weston. I'm a local hotelier in St Brelad's Bay and have been for some 60 years. Been through the good times and then the rather tough times since COVID. Jersey, and in particular St Brelad's Bay, is St Brelad's in general, is a wonderful place to live, and it has a major purpose of being, for its residents, a place to live. But it's also a tourist resort, and I've been involved in that for a long time. I deny entirely that it's my fault that we've seen this decline for the last 60 years, which coincides with my work in the industry. But I haven't heard a single person tonight really discuss the tourism aspect, and I would be very grateful to hear from our 2 candidates whether you are truly supportive of the tourism industry, or is this a place for your local parishioners to live, and if necessary to the detriment of tourists. So for example, you may wish to provide some additional amenity for tourists, say parking permits when they're here and resident in a hotel, possibility of renting out parts of the beach to hotels to serve their guests and so on. So are you truly in support of the tourism industry, or would you sooner see it disappear, as indeed many residents would prefer to see happen?
Thank you for your question. Mike.
For my part, I'm very supportive of the tourism industry, and I think in different areas of the parish it's more important than others. Certainly down here at St Albans, we've seen we've lost a lot of guest houses. We've still got well-established places like the Somerville and Old Courthouse, La Hole down here, and certainly down St Brelad's Bay. There are several offerings, I think a few probably hanging in there, and they do need to be encouraged. Otherwise we won't get visitors coming to the islands, and they're a vital part of our economy. There's a trickle-down effect which a lot of us benefit from, and we need to continue to encourage that. Now the construction of a new hotel in town is interesting, and the construction industry or the hoteliers need to have the confidence that it's going to work, and it's pleasing to see that coming ahead. So will we see something else in St Brelad's Bay? Maybe we will, and I'd be very supportive of anything that comes that way. With regard to the use of the beach, we've had discussions on that with your particular situation. I think it's achievable because we saw it in place at La Hole some years ago. And once again, it's it was the infrastructure department you have to deal with, but there's no reason why you can't have a license to use a certain area, in my view. So I think it's a question of making the applications and doing the paperwork. Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you.
Robert, you'll know, I'm sure you've been affected by it. I think it's, I think the tourism is changing. I think in Jersey, I think that the days of 2-week holidays are long gone. I think we're getting shorter breaks all the time. I think we need to be able to deal with that. I'm confident that there's a great future for the tourism industry. We've seen, I've already mentioned Strive as one example. We've got Millwall House Hotel being rebuilt, and we've got potentially 2 new hotels in town as well. So I've got confidence that we are going to provide, and you are going to provide, hopefully in the future, the sort of tourist accommodation that people want to come to. But it will change, and how long people stay here will change. In terms of using the beach, again, I've seen Lorrazor use it occasionally. Yes, it should be, but I think we need to be, to be conscious that it's a public beach, and I think as long as it's done in the right way and it's respectful of the other beach users, I've got no issue with that. I think that should be allowed. And if hotels want to put events on beaches, that's a great thing. What I would say as well is that we've also got to look at the other opportunities. Airbnb is getting bigger and bigger, and if it brings people into the island, it's going to bring people in not just to stay somewhere. It's going to bring people in to eat, people to go out and have fun and entertainment. But that's another aspect we've got to look at. Is there enough to do here for people when the weather's bad? I don't think so. I think we've really got to look at. I know Fort Regent sometimes can be like Marmite in terms of people's views, but we do need to do something with that. We do need to have something where people can go, that children and families can go and enjoy if we still want them to come here, because not everybody can go to the beach, not everybody wants to go to the beach. But I think what people do want to do is have something to do when the weather's not great. But no, I'm a 100% fan of the tourism industry. It's been the basis of our economy. Yes, it's fallen back a little bit, but I think it can come back in a big way.
Thank you. Next question, just down here, second row back.
Thank you. I'm Ian Cumming. I'm also a parishioner. On the back of the last question, do you support the appointment of an assistant minister for tourism to support the tourism industry, and also tourism strategy based upon sport, culture and heritage? Thank you.
Steve.
Thanks, Ian. An assistant minister for tourism, I think there should be somebody within the economic department that's got specific responsibility for tourism. In saying that, there's a big responsibility on assistant ministers currently. There's so many roles for them to fill. I think you've got to be really careful about what you ask for, and they're going to be able to give you the support that it needs. But it does need somebody that's got responsibility for it, the same way that we've got somebody responsible, or you've got somebody responsible for sport. Sports tourism, I've said it time and time again, is something that could be huge in the island if we just allow it to flourish. I'm going to mention Strive again. I'm not a director there or anything, but I just think it's the right way to go. I think there is an opportunity to bring a lot of sports people to the island and sports clubs to the island. With that, will I think give an opportunity for young people to see their role models and give them an opportunity to have that excitement that we get when we go and watch our sports stars, when we go away and watch them. So yes, we can't have assistant ministers for everything. I'd like to see something around sport rather than tourism, if I was being honest. Because I think some of those roles can be put together.
Thank you. Mike.
I think there is a need for a dedicated individual now, under which hat I think it would probably be unlikely to be a separate ministry, but it all depends a bit on the minister. Some ministers are very protective of their ambit, if you like, and the existing minister has been a bit guarded in dishing out any responsibilities to his assistant ministers. There is the number of ministers is constrained by law, so it's important that those responsibilities are shared. I think Montfort had responsibility for culture in one of the last governments. So that could work. It could be tied in with tourism. As you say, I don't think that would be a bad thing at all. But tourism has fallen away in that we don't have a tourism office. I hear regular complaints about that. So I think we need to do better. And particularly because tourism, I think, is on the rise. We've heard that the present world global situation actually could do well for Jersey because people aren't travelling so far, so they might come closer to home. So we need to provide beds, and let's encourage those and encourage our tourism industry for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Question down here in the front.
Hi, Ellie Korf. I'm from Route Noirmont. Just to say, I'm having a problem because I've got to vote for one or other of you. And you're both sounding quite similar. And I want to know what your passion is. And I want to know what you see in the next, say, 3 years in this parish so that I can make a choice.
So, Mike, your passion.
I'm passionate about St Brelard's, and truthfully, we've got a brilliant parish, and certainly I don't want to change it to the detriment of the residents of the parish. It's evolved over the years. Let's face it, we go back to 15, whatever it is you can see on the board there, and it's evolved to the needs of the parishioners of the day. So I'm not one for staying still. We've got to move ahead, and we've got to adapt to the times we have to face today. Route de Noirmont, you've seen a resurfacing project, but that, in fact, of course, increases car speed sometimes. So everything we do has a consequence. But I think we need to preserve the ambiance of the parish, do what we can for all generations, from young to old, and make it a nice place to live, which it is at the moment. But thank you for your question.
Steve.
My passion, as I said at the start, my passion has always been sport. It's something I love. It's something I still do. It's something that means an awful great deal to me, and it's something I still spend a lot of time doing. But I do it with other people. I do it with other members of the community of all sorts of ages. And it's something that I will carry on doing. I've put community a lot in the manifesto because it means a lot to me. What has been the most satisfying thing for me in the last 3 years is watching a club that was dead, dying on its feet, St Brelade Social Club, go back to be the vibrant hub of community around that particular area, going from being what was a very secret drinking den to what now attracts 60, 70, 80 young people there on a Saturday afternoon with families and kids playing football outside. And yes, people having a drink and people enjoying themselves. So what I still get excited about is going out seeing that, and that's what I think St Brelard's is about. I mean, I go and play pétanque. I go and play up at the Jersey Pétanque Club with 90-year-olds, 95-year-olds that are still playing. That's what gives me a drive to carry on making sure that they're supported, that they can carry on doing that they've still got a club there to go and do it at. That's the thing that really keeps me going, and I want to make sure we're able to do that. We had a great St Brelade community support team. I want to build that again so that it gets people out, meeting each other, talking to each other. And if you can't get out, then we'll go and talk to you, and we'll still give you a reason for getting out of bed on a Wednesday morning, because somebody's going to come and talk to you and read to you. They're the things that are really important to me. It's people. It's not buildings. I know we need to look after buildings, but we've got to look after people. I've spoken to too many people that are struggling. So the community means a lot to me. And I am proud about St Brelade Social Club. And every time I walk in there and somebody moans to me that the kids are too noisy, I go, great, let's get more of them in, because that's what we should be doing.
Thank you. Question at the back there. With his arm up.
Eugene Sampson, I live in the parish. As one of you will be in the assembly next time, how do you feel about the old age pension being taxed?
So, taxation on the old age pension. Are you for it or against it? Steve.
I'm glad you've asked that question, because it's kind of become a pretty hot topic, I think. What do I think about double taxation? I I've seen Social Security's view of it, and I've seen government's view of it, and I've seen the petition's view of it. Have I got a distinct view on it? The thing that matters to me most about the pension and the state pension is ensuring people that can't afford to live can afford to live. So I've been quite clear in my manifesto about having a review of the state pension, but in that review would be a review of double taxation to fully understand what it really means and how we can best support people that most need supporting financially. I think there is a group of pensioners that sit just on the tax threshold or just above it that are getting absolutely wiped out at the current time. And I think by having a review and seeing there might be other tweaks to the system we can do to ensure that people that we can support people better. The issue I have around taking tax off of the state's pension completely is there are people with huge whacking great pensions that can afford to pay tax on their state pension, and there are others that seriously can't afford to do that, and it's those people that are most important to me, the people that are struggling, and it's the same with young families. We might be able to help them a little bit with tax thresholds, with income, with support around Social Security and paying Social Security, but that needs to be part of the review, and we need to put that to bed one way or another. We need to understand what it's going to cost if we do that, how we're going to pay for it, because there is always a cost to it. But if it's unfair, then we need to deal with it, but it can be dealt with in that review.
Thank you. Mike?
Nobody wants to pay more tax than they have to, and there is a tinge of unfairness with pensioners being double taxed, and I fully agree with that. I sat through a debate on it relatively recently, and the Treasury Minister was rebuffed the idea, if you like. I think it will come back to the States, and there's a fair chance it could get passed, so it's really up to us to consider it and convince our colleagues in the States that double taxation isn't really fair, and I would agree with you on that it isn't. What can we do about it? Let's try and look after our pensions, those in need, and pensioners have worked all their lives to get that pension. Some pensions are better than others, but the state pension is not that great, and people do struggle to get by on it, and let's try and support them the best way we can. Thank you.
Okay, next question. There's one more who hasn't asked yet, but I will come to you when we finish with the first. Okay.
My name's Alexina Hossard. I'd be interested to know what you think about renewable energy, forms of renewables, wind farms, solar panels. Any views about that, please?
Thank you. Mike?
Well, in terms of what's going on at home, if you like, Maison St Brelade, which is a property I didn't mention to Judy at the back there, that we own, of course, and we recently put some sun panels on the roof of that, and they've made a remarkable difference. That's achievable. When it comes to wind farms, I know Jonathan here had some ideas about that. I'm sceptical, I have to say, because I've seen the Sambria wind farm from a boating point of view, going through it, and the aesthetics of these aeolians not great. The proposal was that it would be twice the height of the ones down there, much closer to us, and to me, not a pretty sight, although it has to be said the joy is always in the eye of the beholders. But it seemed to me in the proposals coming forward that it wasn't going to be a great benefit to the Jersey resident, the Jersey electricity user. So I think probably we need to focus better on sun UV provision. There has been debate, of course, about using fields for voltaic cells. I think there are fields that could be used without detriment to the agricultural industry. There was suggestions that several good fields in St Martin, St Mary's be used, and that's been pulled back for the moment by the JEC. It is doable. I think there are some out of St Clement's, but it needs to be done carefully. There are fields which are not so good for agriculture, and I think focus needs to be taken on those for better use. Thank you.
Steve.
Another great question. It's probably the only subject that I agree with Donald Trump on, and I don't particularly like wind farms very much. I don't really think if that Jersey as a government should be investing in that. I think we spent money on it, and I don't think we should have spent money on it. In terms of solar panels, absolutely. I think there is opportunities. I'm not a great supporter of seeing green fields covered in solar panels, but I think there are a lot of places in Jersey on buildings that we could put solar panels and make a lot of it. Do we need to do more from a net zero point of view? I think we need to do our bit. I'm not convinced that the current pace at which we're moving is right. And I think the current environment minister certainly around diesel and petrol cars, I think is right by putting it back. I don't think we're ready for it. I think it would be too costly, and I think the people that suffer the most will be the vulnerable, those that can't afford to change their cars, and I'm not in favour of that. Yeah, I think that's about it. But wind farms, no. I want to see a field of 60 wind farms at Corbière? Absolutely not, no. But I think there are opportunities with air source heat, I can't say it, the children on the advert can, air source heat pumps and ground source heat pump, great. But and solar panels, but no, definitely not wind farms.
Thank you. Any more questions? We'll come down the front here and then go to the second row.
Hello, Jonathan Korf, parishioner. I'd like to hear from the candidates one or two messages for parishioners who are under 35. What are your one or two pledges or messages about why they should come out and vote at all, because lots don't, and specifically for you? So what are your pledges and messages for under 35 voters?
Steve,
that they will get excited about.
How are you going to excite the under 35s?
I would look at anybody under 35 and say to them, this island could offer them a lot and offer them a great future. I think what we've got to do is not promise them the earth, but I think make sure that once they come out of education, if they come back to the island, they've got an opportunity to be able to live affordably, and find somewhere to live affordably, and to be able to and to be able to raise a family. That's what a lot of young people want. They just want a very simple, ordinary life. They're not asking for the world. It is difficult. The island has changed. When I grew up, there was 101 things to do when you were under 35, and plenty of things to go and see, and it has changed that way, and we've got to change with it a little bit. But I think what we've got to make the island more attractive economically. I think there's an opportunity to make the island much diverse than it is. I think there will be changes in the financial industry that will turn more towards digital. I think the same with the digital sector generally. And we've got to bring people back that are trained properly to be able to do that. But to be able to do that, the key issue, I think, every senatorial candidate is about housing and providing housing that's affordable, and that's going to be the one thing that's going to attract them back. But there's still a future here. I've got children here that are around that age, and they wouldn't dream of leaving because it's safe. They can bring children up here happily. Our education system is fantastic. It's getting more expensive to live, but our tax system's pretty good. It does give you an opportunity to save. Are there big divides in those that earn a great deal and those that earn less? There are, and we've got to be able to cope with that, so that we don't just give young people that have got great jobs and opportunity. We need to give people that have got less opportunity a greater opportunity.
Thank you. Mike.
In answer to your question directly, I think we have to get the message across that actually your vote counts. Now, whether it's for us or for any of the other candidates in the elections, getting people to vote is something that the government, Gref Vote JE, have been really working hard on to get people to vote. There's always an argument, well, it won't make any difference. Well, of course it will make a difference, because hopefully the people that do get into the States will empathise with your views, whatever they may be, and it is part of down to communication, keeping those communication channels going. And sometimes, I have to say, is generally States members, let alone constables, there isn't enough feedback, and I really appreciate feedback so that we can understand what we want, which direction we should go in, and we can have the conversations down the line with other States colleagues with their particular areas of responsibility and try and get that view across. It's important. Please go out and vote.
Thank you. Next question there. And then we'll go to the back there. Okay.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Longois and I live in the parish. I wondered if you had any solutions to Connétable precinct. You talk about tourism being important and that St Albans is a kind of vibrant area with restaurants, but when you just go up the hill where a lot of people are living in this parish, the precinct is looking pretty dire and quite uninviting. So I just wondered if you had any ideas on how to stimulate that area, especially in kind of ways of restaurants. I mean, you know, Greg's is nice, but that's not where your holiday maker is going to want to go for a cup of tea or a piece of cake. So I just wondered if you had any opinions or any thoughts on how the Connétable precinct area could be improved for all of us. Thank you.
Mike.
Well, it's a subject which a lot of people have scratched their heads on, and the reality is it's home to quite a few people. The accommodation above are homes, and for some reasons, going back a few years, the owner of the entire property sold flying freeholds of the properties above the shops, which makes it very difficult for any developer to buy back and redevelop. I consider it really as a brownfield site which is ripe for development, and to this end I did have a word with the head of the Jersey Development Company, just as a property expert, to see what their views would be and what might happen. And when they did the sums of the rentals being received, it's considered a reasonable return on the investment that's made at the moment. So the owners, who are UK based, are unlikely to sell it in favour of something else which might not return as much money. He indicated it was a matter of time. If those owners at some point decide to sell and others purchase it, that might put a different light onto it. But I think we're all quite enthusiastic for it to change. I'm old enough to remember it being built, sadly, but it is 60s style, isn't it? And it was probably the right thing then, but we've moved on. The shops are still very expensive for those trying to operate from there. Really disproportionate costs, and it's very difficult to make it pay. That's why there are so many empty ones, which isn't never good for an area at the best of times. Thank you.
Steve.
Again, thank you for the question. I think the first thing to remember is that they're people's homes, and when we talk about this, what we're talking about is removing people from their homes to do so. If we're talking about developing that site and changing what's there, we've got to remember people own their homes and own their flats above those shops. For me, it's got to change in time, because that building, I think, has got a shelf life. The whole of that site has got a shelf life before I think it gets to a point it gets in such a state of repair it's going to be very difficult to maintain it. And I'm not sure, if you speak to the owners, that it's being maintained properly now. Is there an opportunity to do something? Mike's mentioned Jersey Development Company. I mentioned it on the radio a couple of weeks ago. I think it needs something of that nature to take over the development of that site or Andium. I think it needs to be away from States members. It needs to be a third party or an arm's length organisation such as Jersey Development Company that can speak with and work with high tide developments, who are the commercial owners, about how they could develop that site so that the public gets something out of it, the owners of the flats get something out of it, and high tide at least are compensated for the commercial units that they've got. I'm not sure how many flats are there. I'm going to say it's around 60. I'm not sure. Whatever we do, if you want to develop the whole of that site, you've got to provide another unit of accommodation, 2-bedroom unit for all of those 60 owners. I think you could do that on that site, and then use the rest of the site to develop something commercially, which would cover high tides investment in it, and also provide some new flats, which is why I mentioned Andium, some new flats or apartments that would be a benefit from a social aspect point of view. They might be rental, they might well be to buy. But I think there is a way through that, but I think it is talking to professional people about the art of the possible. But the thing with the parish, it's not something the parish would get involved with other than, and I'm looking at one of the deputies here, is whether we would be involved with facilitating that discussion and starting to move forward about changing it, because something like that would be a 10-year project. It's not going to happen the next couple of years, but you've got to get the ball rolling if you want to get to where you need to. But it's not going to be an easy one. But for me, it's around talking to a Jersey development company about whether they would get involved with it.
Thank you. Next question up there, at the back.
Good evening, Heath Harvey, I'm a parishioner. I'd like to just start by saying thank you both for standing. Democracy is a wonderful thing, less so when people don't stand. I think it takes a huge amount of shoe leather and energy to do what you're both doing. So I, for one, as a parishioner, appreciate that energy that you are bringing to this process. You've both convinced me tonight that you're good listeners and your manifestos are full of promises, pledges, and priorities. But I don't really want to vote for a listener, I want to vote for a doer. So could you tell me the one thing when you get into that office, the other side of that wall, the first thing you think you're going to do, the most important number one priority in your manifesto, please?
Steve.
I think the one thing that I've got to do is understand how this current parish administration works, where money is being spent, and how we can make that more efficient so that we're not a burden or any more of a burden on taxpayers. That's got to be the thing that has got to drive me. I'm sorry if there's something else in there that you really want me to do, but for me, it's about bringing the cost of running this parish down, or at least attempting to stop it going up any further than it needs to. I'm cognizant that when I talk about the parish administration, I talk about, not only do I talk about the building, I talk about people that work here, and I've got a huge respect. I've worked with many of them over a long period of time. But what I see in the parish accounts doesn't excite me a great deal. And I need to sit down with the procurers, and we need to have a good look about how we can move forward and try to make the cost of running this parish less than it currently is now. I don't want to see the rates go up like they have been in recent years. That's my prime objective. Other things in there will be working side by side with it, but that's got to be my main objective. It's clearly the main thing in there. It's the thing that you look at when you read it. So that's got to be my main objective.
Mike.
Thank you. I think my first priority is dealing with the Elephant Park toilet block, which we've started, and it's been languishing on for years, it seems, blocked by various elements, and trying to scrape up the money to pay for it has been a real challenge. So we're on that route now, and that's moving ahead in the right direction. We've got other bits of crumbling property down here which need to be dealt with, so those are pretty high on the priority list, because I know if we don't deal with that, the costs will just go up and up even more, and that all has to come back, has to be funded and come back to a parish assembly before we proceed with that. So there is, as I mentioned before, there's got to be a property maintenance strategy put in place. And that applies also to the roads, and I alluded to that in my opening speech. The Roads Committee are working on an asset management register. Roads can last about 30 years. They're great till along comes the utility and digs them up, and that really compromises their condition. So I suppose my philosophy is to maintain what we got. Government generally aren't good at maintenance, but I'm determined that we should maintain what we've got for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else wants to ask a question? Up at the back.
Good evening. My name is Giuseppe Mauro. I've been a parish rate in St. Brelade for the past 40 years and more. I would like a lot of opinion. Tonight, you're asking for a vote as a constable. But also many people have a doubt about you taking a position of a ministerial job. Will that interfere with your parish work? Because they don't mind you to be in the government to represent the parish and keep an eye on our deputies, but not to take another job as a ministerial job. Is that got anything to do with money? Thank you.
So the question is, would you... So it's the kind of conflict between being a minister and being a constable. Mike.
Well, having done it and got the T-shirt, I think I can fairly say to you, no thanks. Truthfully, there was a general question asked about this some time ago during our radio interview, and it does depend on the size of the parish as to whether the constable can take that role. And in the smaller parishes, where the responsibilities aren't so onerous, I think it's doable. I've had the role of assistant minister. That actually is probably the easiest role to undertake as a parish constable. Likewise, a scrutiny role is something that you can easily do, but certainly for my part, no thanks.
Steve.
Giuseppe, it's in there. The answer's no. No, I wouldn't take a ministerial role. I stepped down as being constable because I wanted to take a ministerial role. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I was an assistant minister. There's a big difference between being an assistant. Well, you need to get your facts right. I wasn't a minister when I was previously constable. I was an assistant minister, as Mike's been an assistant minister, but I haven't been a minister. And I've been clear about that I will not be a minister because the role of constable in St. Brelad's does not give you the opportunity or the time to be able to do that. And I've been clear about that. And I've been honest about that with parishioners, many of whom were disappointed when I stepped down, but I wanted to be honest with people. I think if you've got an aim or something that you want to do, be honest with people. And I wasn't prepared to take the parish down with me by spending more time away from here than I needed to. So the answer to that is absolutely not. Are there roles within government in terms of an assistant minister I would take? Yeah, I mean, I love my time at sport, but it was something I could do off the side of the desk when I was here. It didn't take an awful lot of time up, but it's something that involved me with the community, which is one of the reasons I did it. It gave me an opportunity to meet lots of St. Brelad's people that play sport. So I think that's the simple question to your answer is no.
Thank you. Next question. Are there any other questions? Okay, over here, and then I'll come to you for your second question.
Hi, Paul Hubie, live in the parish. We live in a beautiful parish, and when we take our dog out walking around Portlet, Noirmont, Waynay areas, lovely but spoilt by irresponsible owners who leave dog mess all over the place, which I'm sure you've heard about before, but just wondering how far would the candidates go regarding stringent measures perhaps up to include and removing dogs from owners, or any other suggestions about the blight?
Okay, Steve.
As a dog owner, although I don't walk the dogs now because one died and the other one is not capable of walking, which I miss greatly, not being able to take them out. I see my wife's laughing about that, but there we go. It's a serious subject. I mean, it's awful. I mean, I've taken my grandchildren up around cliff paths and they've stepped in things that they shouldn't be stepping in. It's a difficult one. It's not something for the people have gone, well, we should have honorary police up there doing. I think the honorary police have got enough on their plates without asking them to go around chasing people around with dick. But the fines. I think if you get caught doing it, I think the fine should be a big slap on the wrist and a hefty fine. But catching people doing it is another thing. It's terrible for tourism. It's even worse on the beach. I mean, I've seen kids step on the beach and digging up when they've got their shovel and spades out. It's awful. Education's got to be the biggest way forward. Just to say to people, if you want people to come and enjoy the island and come in here on holiday, that's not the thing you need to do. In saying that, it's always the very small minority that don't play by the rules. What's even worse, I think, are those that bag it and leave it there, because then it doesn't disintegrate at all. But we could have wardens. There's a cost to that. Is it going to improve it? I don't know. Can you be there all the time? I don't know what we've never found an answer to it. But I think if you are caught, the fine should be. It should be £300, £400, £500 fine. It shouldn't be a £50, £30, £20 fine. It should be a worthwhile fine.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I can assure you the Committee of Constables have looked at this in depth and fed by Julian. Is Julian still here? Did some work on DNA testing, and it was thought through. But of course, who picks the dog mess up, and what do they do with it? The proposal was that it would be picked up, sent to a UK laboratory. The dog would have a chip when they originally were registered, so there'd be some sort of identification. And it happens in other countries, so it's doable, but there wasn't much enthusiasm for the picking up bit, as you can imagine. I think it is down to responsible dog ownership, and in my experience, it tends to be the same people. And sand dunes is terrible at times. Attention has been drawn to professional dog walkers being perhaps less responsible than they might have been. So there is work to do, and it is down to education, I'm afraid. But I agree, it's horrible, and I would support anything that could reduce it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to ask your second question? Wait for the mic.
Mrs. Waller has already gone on the subject about speeding bicycles. What about the speed of cars and general traffic that comes through the village? It is far, far too fast. Is there any way that the traffic can be slowed down to enable us, especially older people, a safe crossing? I know we've got zebra crossings, but is there any way of physically slowing the traffic down?
So, speeding cars, Mike.
Thanks, Chris. I think the only way to effectively slow cars down is a raised table such as we have outside Lamoy School, of a reasonable height that people certainly know when they're going over it. And I did, I think, pass yesterday when I was out with a dog, saw a very smart Aston Martin, nothing wrong with Aston Martin, stopped for fear of spoiling his spoiler. So it has the desired effect, and I think we have to encourage the infrastructure department to do that. And where we've got the zebra crossings, they could easily be raised tables. There is a cost to that, but I think it's probably the only way to do it. Thanks.
Steve.
Remembering back probably 15, 20 years, I think the problem is less than it was. I think it does still exist. I think there are people that drive through there too fast. There's no doubt about that. And pedestrians take their, I think, especially on the furthest zebra crossing here by the taxi rank, I think sometimes people aren't really conscious of people coming out the car park. So I think that's a particularly dangerous one. But I think in terms of slowing them down, the only thing, there is only you can only put a raised table in, but you've got number 15 buses coming through there. You've also got ambulances coming through there as well. But if it's that serious a safety issue, then maybe that needs to be considered. And you know, ambulances deal with raised tables elsewhere, so there's no reason they couldn't deal with them here.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Okay, so we go to the fourth row back, and then we'll go to the front row.
Hi, Rio. There's a question before and an answer about the Connétable precinct and about potential development. I feel like the issue there isn't that it needs redevelopment, it's more of an issue to do with the commercial landlord. So we've got these units that are there, but some of them are in disrepair, and my understanding is High Tide are refusing to do anything about contributing to the maintenance of it. It's even making some of the residential blocks above have issues, and they can't resolve it because the commercial tenant won't do anything about their side of the maintenance. And also they refuse to budge or negotiate on the price of it, which means we've got a whole load of units there which are just empty and could easily be used in the current arrangement of the buildings if they just handled maintenance and negotiated the rents. We hear a lot in Jersey about residential landlords and tenants and what people want to do about residential landlords, but my understanding is we don't really have good powers to deal with the commercial landlords causing issues. So would either of you be willing to support things in the Assembly that would help give better powers to deal with that? Maybe penalties for commercial units left empty, or if they're not maintaining the property?
Steve?
I think with commercial tenants, that's difficult. They don't come across as being the best landlords. I mean, I'd like to see more done to at least to tidy and brighten the area up a little bit than it is. But in terms of the rentals, they don't seem to want to listen. That the only way you're going to attract tenants in there is, one, do work on the property and try to improve what's there, and two, have a rental that's reasonable. I think their worry is if they bring the rentals down, they'll have everybody else that's there crying foul and wanting their rentals to be reassessed. And you know, they've already recouped their outlay on the original cost, and everything they get through the rental is pure profit. My biggest concern, I take your point about the commercial side of it. The commercial side, in the end, could drag down the residential side, because if there is an investment in it, the same as there is not investment in the building, some of those units are going to be very difficult, I think, to maintain after a period of time. Do I desperately want to see it redeveloped? I just want it looking better than it is. I want to see it maintained to a level that you could refurbish those buildings, but that's going to come at quite a cost. And I don't think the residents have got the money in the sinking fund to be able to do that. So we've got to find a solution that suits the residents, whether we like it or not, suits the landlord. But commercial rents, as long as they're getting the rents that they're getting, they won't drop them. What's going to drive them? Could the states do it? Could they legislate against it? I think that's difficult. What do you legislate against? People making excess of profit? It's a difficult one to pin down. So I'd much prefer to see the route that I'd like to see it go to, about a proper redevelopment of that site, but be fair to the residents that live there currently now.
Mike.
Some time ago, Deputy Miles brought a proposition to the States to put commercial rent controls in place, and that was rejected, probably on the basis that it wasn't achievable. You're dealing with private property. The renters, if you like, have the final say, in that they either rent it or they don't at the price quoted. And it's a shame from the community point of view we haven't got all the outlets full, because that's what makes a community thrive. It's the commercial side of it. What is the answer? Difficult. It's a brilliant development site. If you think of the whole site with a car park, what it could be is something fantastic. But it'll need a bold developer to buy it all up and do it, and that's probably what we want. So in the short term, difficult, and I know there are one or two shops just are uninhabitable or untenable in terms of their condition, and it's really down to those tenants to be negotiating with the landlords and get the best deal that they can. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? The Alexina in the middle there. If you want to ask a second question, you're welcome to now.
Would you support the formation of a Bank of Jersey?
Mike, it's your turn to go first.
I don't know. I don't think I'm sufficiently versed in banking to give you a straight answer on that. If it was, we have a such thing as a community savings bank, which is Jersey-based, if you like. What is the benefit these days? What would the benefits be, I suppose, would have to be asked. We've seen such a change in banking. We've seen the loss of our banks, Lloyds and Barclays here. In NatWest, we just have HSBC at Red Houses. And interestingly enough, they've made quite a significant investment into the property there. And I think banking has changed in that the sort of business that's being done, the over-the-counter stuff is just diminished. I know for some older people it's really been quite difficult. I can say from the post office point of view, because I know a bit about it, the post office still receives, well, Maria here will tell me if I'm wrong, but receives payments for electricity bills, for gas bills, water bills and that sort of thing in cash or by cheque. So that's probably the only channel that you can do that, and they're at those post office here, obviously, and also at Red Houses. So that's still doable. So I think the question I would have to ask or understand is what the benefits might be. Thank you.
Steve.
If the government had anything to do with the Bank of Jersey, I wouldn't trust it as far as I could throw it. I certainly wouldn't want the government to get involved with being the prime lender or the prime driver behind a Bank of Jersey. What I think might have a little bit more.
One, two, three. The magic has worked. Okay. Yeah. Just a slight buzz, but
Hello? 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 Working?
yes.
Okay.
Can you get back in your stride now?
Yeah, I was just about to say, what I think might be interested, I think from a point of view of islanders, if they were looking to invest and they wanted to invest in the island, would be, and to give it some credibility and also to give it some safety, would be if government did launch a fund, for example, that was linked to the strategic reserve, that gave them the sort of interest rates that we're currently getting on the strategic reserve. I mean, that might be some way of enticing people to invest, perhaps in the future of Fort Regent, for example, if they knew they had a guaranteed return on their money. But that's something I was just thinking. It's not something I've been thinking about for a long time. But I think strategic returns on the strategic reserve have been incredible. So why can't we give some of that benefit back to islanders? But it would be around investing that money into the future of the island. Fort Regent would be a good one for as an example.
Thank you. Any more questions? Anybody want to pop up with a second question? Ah, yes, you're next, aren't you? Yes, down at front.
Thank you. This was really just when the gentleman spoke about the problem of dog owners leaving their little bags deposited all over the place, and both candidates spoke about the cost of trying to police that, etc. Is that something, do you think, either candidate thinks that maybe community service could get involved with, not just for that, but just keeping our island neat, our parish neat and tidy anyway? Because community service are always looking for projects anyway, and it would save maybe some costs to us.
Okay, Steve.
That might be an interesting use for community service, having to go around picking up dog poo instead of serving a sentence in prison. But on a serious note, I mean, they do a fantastic job. I mean, we've seen, I mean, Mike's seen as well, the work they do up at Nuamo, Portlet, you know, they don't do it out of choice, they do it because they have to, but they do a good job, and they do good service. We've used them, and we've asked them to come up and assist up at the at St Brelade Social Club, and they were a godsend last summer, when we really, no, the summer before, when we were really struggling with trying to find money to get the pitch cut and the place tidied up. So it's an interesting idea, whether you let them loose on their own to go off and do that type of thing. I'm not too sure about that, but community service is there for a reason. It's a serious issue. One current States member's got to serve some of that, so maybe we could send him up there doing it.
Mike.
Worth a try. I think the trouble is, I say trouble with community services, great for both parties if you like, but it does need to be managed and monitored. So you need the manpower to supervise, and if that were to be achievable, why not? And I think it's worth a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question over here.
Just a quick one. I'd just like to hear the candidates' thoughts on what's happening at Le Pollant Slipway.
Do you mean the cafe that is no longer a cafe?
Yeah, from the elephant park to the elephant in the room, really. Yeah.
Okay, so Mike first.
Well, I'm considering writing a book on it, to be honest, because it might be a Bible by the time I get to it. It's and can I tell you how it kicked off, and you might blame me for the initial start of it. I was walking with the dog at La Pollant actually at one point, came up to find a lady squatting in the bushes, and there was a toilet block next to it, but it was in a dire state. And at that point I started making noises with the infrastructure department under whom it was being managed about what they were going to do with it. And eventually I think by that time it may have been sold by the states to property developers, people who proposed to develop it. So it was sold to people who got planning permission to redevelop it into the cafe that you see there now. They in turn sold it on, well actually they got planning permission, they in turn then sold it on to a property developer who did the development during the COVID period, a really challenging time to do a development, but he did. And then got tenants lined up to go in there. They were in there for a very short time, as we know, and their business model probably wasn't wasn't sustainable, and they in turn have been bailed out by obtaining finance from a third party, and that third party is just trying to get something moving down there now. Running a cafe, the argument back from cafe operators is that it never had enough covers to make it sustainable as a cafe. I'm not expert enough in that field to be able to comment. Maybe with the tables and chairs on the top terrace, that might work. So it is really getting it operating as a cafe. I can't comment on the planning applications. I don't know anything about them, but I'm sure others will.
Steve.
Being conscious that the owner is in the room and trying to be honest with you as well as parishioners. It's difficult. I mean, that site for me was sold to build a small cafe that would serve parishioners. What happened in the intervening time when the developer got involved and was a building that is far in excess of what it should have been. And I think planning are to blame for a lot of what went on there. I don't think there was enough oversight. I think things went on, things were built that should never have been built. And what we ended up with is a building that cost far in excess of what they thought they were going to be building, and then had to borrow money to buy it, and then found out that it wasn't worth what they thought. The issue now is, with the current owner, is she is now saddled with it. It's going to be a difficult one to deal with, but I think we have to find some way through it. What we've got to be conscious about is in the Coastal National Park. And my biggest concern, I think, is all the way through this, is circumventing the planning law. And I'm not pointing a finger at anybody when I say that, is that it was built for a purpose, and it's currently, or it's being suggested that it's not going to be used for that purpose. If it's not going to be used for that purpose, and it's going to be changed in any way other than the original purpose, then there needs to be strict planning obligations or a strict planning covenant or whatever you want to put on it to make sure that it is not turned into a residential home further down the line. Because that, when you look at what the public got for that site when it first was sold to what it would be worth as a residential site, the public have been, sorry about the phrase, screwed over. And that's not right. But one of my concerns now is it is in the Coastal National Park, but I do think we've got to, there are issues on that site that some of us do know about and some that don't, that the owner's got to deal with. I have some sympathy for that, and there needs to be a compromise along the line somewhere, but it's going to take a bit of give and take from those that oppose any type of cell catering there, to some that want to see nothing. I'm not sure where I am in it right now, but I think we've got, you know, I don't want to see that place lying idle. I think there needs to be something there, but I blame this for planning.
Well, we've just got time for one quick question, if the candidates are quite quick at answering it. Has anybody got a quick question that they'd like to finish up the evening with? You've all exhausted your queries? Well, would you like to do that? No. Okay. Oh, hang on, there's somebody with a question. Let's finish up with the last question. Okay. Put your hand up again.
Lucy Hong, I'm a parishioner. If you were voting in the UK right now, who would you vote for? What party?
Steve.
I've always, when I've looked at UK politics, I've always generally been somebody that supported the Labour Party, but I would struggle at the current time to do that. To be honest, I'll probably vote Green, purely because I think they've got different ideas. I think, you know, they've got some of them quite radical at times, but I certainly could, I could never vote Tory, and I could never vote for Nigel Farage, so it doesn't give me an awful lot of choice.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
I think I quite like Kerry Badenoch. I mean, she's a feisty lady, and I think she'll be a future Prime Minister as time goes on. But it's a bit of a shambles at the moment. I think the Starmer government is teetering. I don't think there's much question about that, and I'm not a Farage follower. So we watch with interest. Thank you.
Well, thank you for all your questions, and thank you to the candidates for their answers. Thanks all. Thank you to the tech team, the parish team, Glenda for passing around the mic, and Jenny on the bell. She hasn't had to use it that much, though. You've both been very disciplined. And everybody else who's helped organise this evening. If you'd like to get in touch with any of your election candidates, you can find their contact details on vote.je or in the manifesto booklet that's been delivered to all households. If you applied for a postal vote, your ballot papers need to be with the Judicial Graph by 12 noon on the 7th of June. You can vote early at St Paul's Centre from next week on the 26th until the 1st of June. On election day, polling stations are open from 8 till 8, and please remember to take photo ID with you. Now, both candidates would like to have a quick word. Who wants to go first? Whose turn is it? Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to thank you for not only turning up, but also for some very interesting questions, which are much appreciated and stimulates the mind. I would say that in this building somewhere, there is the old plate for printing money, so perhaps we can talk further about banking later. Thank you very much.
Steve.
Again, follow Mike just to say thanks for the questions. You never know what's coming. You never know what type of question you're going to get, but I think they were very interesting questions. Some areas that I didn't think we'd be covering tonight, and some areas that we definitely would be covering tonight, which was good. All I would ask people to do, and people that you know to do, is to come out and vote. I know a lot of people are. I've met people that are going, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote. You have to go out and vote. Otherwise, you can't turn around afterwards and go, I didn't like him and he got in. If you've got to make that effort, and sometimes it's a bit of this, but you've got to do the right thing for the island. We've got to make sure that we've got a successful island, and I'd be wrong if I didn't say successful St Brelards.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Good night.